Hey everybody, and welcome back to WMS Tech Ed. This is Mr. O, and this tutorial is going to be about using Fusion 360 to model buildings, which it's not really necessarily meant for, but sometimes that's what you have, so that's what we're going to use. And before we actually jump into our screenshots and taking that, I wanted to point out that the information I'm doing comes from an existing building on our property. So if you're designing a new building, you're going to have to generate some information for that and figure some things out. Um, I went out to our existing building with my sketchbook and was sketching out very basic dimensions right here. It looks like a bunch of scribbles, but it's enough information. I have offsets and measurements of different features such as doorways and windows. I have heights in my sketchbook for ceiling heights. And it's kind of interesting. We're going to do this a little backwards. When I modeled this in Fusion, I worked from the inside out, and that was to guarantee that my inside measurements hold out. And then from there, if the walls aren't quite right, it's okay. And believe it or not, when I modeled it, everything worked out okay. So just kind of went through. I went back. You can see here I was also getting information on the trusses that are built. They're prefabricated. So if you're going to use Fusion to do some building work, you are going to need to generate information and measurements. And a sketchbook is a great way to do that. Take it out, get some measurements, or lay things out first on paper, and then jump into Fusion to start modeling it. I think it will make your workflow go a little better. So with that being said, let's jump into the tutorial. So here we are in Fusion, folks, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to do our normal workflow. So we need to create a new file. So I'm going to choose File and choose Save up here in the top left. And I would like to create a new location or a new project. So when we open up our project file, I'm going to choose New Project. We'll call this Bungalow. Bungalow is a very, very basic type of house that usually doesn't have a whole lot of frills. They're typically rectangular in nature. It's just a living space. And I'm going to hit Enter. We'll see if this one sets up. There we go. We'll click on that. And we'll name this one Bungalow 1. And I oftentimes use version numbers, so version 1, and we'll click Save. We've got our file created. The next thing we want to do is we want to create a component right out of the gate. And to do that, we want to make sure that we're using components in the idea that it represents our basic building functions. So exterior walls, interior walls, trusses, roof, that type of thing. That would be my suggested workflow, and of course you can branch out from there. So when we model in Fusion for our building, remember we're doing a conceptual model. This is not a full-blown BIM model like you would do in Revit. Revit would tie a lot of information to what we're doing. It would give you material breakdowns, all of those things. We're not going to do that. We're just trying to get a conceptual model, particularly of our floor plan. So let's create a new component. We're going to call that component Exterior Walls. Click OK. And we're going to begin our sketch. And let's make sure that we use our XY plane so the building is presenting correctly. All right. And for our basic bungalow, I'm going to choose a rectangular dimension of 18 by 25 feet. But if I start doing that, it's going to be in inches. So let's go up to our document settings in our left corner, use the drop down, choose the units and edit those units. And here in our unit type, we can choose from inches, millimeters, meters, such things. We're going to use feet and click OK. Now when I type in my rectangle, it's going to be in feet, which is excellent for doing an actual building. So we use a 2-point rectangle, pick up our origin, and I want the length, or excuse me, the height right now to be 18. That's 18 feet. Tab key, 25 feet. We'll hit return. And we've got the basic outline of our building. Doing our exterior walls in this fashion is really, really simple because all we need to do is do an offset. So I'll use my offset command, choose the outer rectangle, and in this instance, I want to offset outward because I'm working from interior dimensions, at least in my workflow. You may or may not be doing the same thing. And I want my walls to be, we're going to say 8 inches thick at this point. Depending on the building style, that may or may not be the case. But instead of trying to calculate feet, all I have to do is type in 8, IN, and it will understand what I mean, and we'll click enter. We now have 4 exterior walls. Simply finish your sketch. And let's go ahead and extrude those walls. So I'm going to choose that outer set of rectangles and bring them up to a nominal dimension of perhaps 8 or 9 feet. Click OK. And at this point, we have our exterior. If I choose home, we have 4 exterior walls with interior dimensions of 18 feet by 25 feet.